Welcome to Blamestorming. Blamestorming. In a post-truth world, there's plenty of blame to go around. Plenty of blame to go around. Join Dave Cyrus and Marissa Smith as they blamestorm about today's hot topics.
Hey guys, welcome to Blamestorming. I'm Marissa Smith. As always, I've got Dave Cyrus with me.
She does.
I've got Richie Redding with me.
Yeah, dude.
And I've got Peter Brocker with me.
Also here.
So, Dave, how have you been?
I'm good. Thank you for asking, Marissa. So glad to have you guys. We have my friend Richie Redding here for the first time. One of the people I've been wanting to have on the show.
Oh, thank you.
To be honest, and we have our lawyers back. So,
yes, the Blamestorming lawyer is back.
Counselor, how do you feel about the day's events? Do you count as a counselor? Does anyone count as counselor if they're a lawyer? Is it interchangeable or only litigators?
No, I think that anybody can be a counselor. I think
you could be a constable.
Look how much he knows, everybody.
Yeah, I think it's pretty. I mean, it's pretty. It's like calling anybody that teaches a professor. I'm like, sure, why not?
All right, fun. Because there's lots of law stuff to talk about right now, right? I mean, we have Judge Kavanaugh. Now you're a
Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
He's Kavanaugh.
I don't think he's earned the elongated A at the end.
Okay.
I only have time to say Kavanaugh.
Kavanaugh.
Now, you're a lawyer. Is it illegal to only try to rape someone?
Yeah, that's still pretty illegal. I gotta say, I feel pretty confident in saying that trying to rape somebody still not allowed.
Because I saw an interview with some supporters who said the exact words. A woman had said, like, I have teenage sons. What teenage boy didn't do this? And of course, we should do the background. Of course, Judge Kavanaugh has been accused of attempting to rape a girl in high school. Doing the old. Just pulling almost like the classic frat boy nightmare of like girl gets pulled into like a room and the guys try to take her clothes off and she runs out screaming and thank God got away. And we really see a lot of people basically just being like, hey, boys will be boys, right?
Well, I think it's been amazing to watch people just jump right over whether he did it and start arguing that even though he did, it's not disqualifying.
That's
like.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, he was a kid. They were both kids. And then I also think that you have that whole group of people that are like, well, if this actually happened, then, like, why didn't she go to the police? Like,
well, that's the group of people is named Trump. It is named Donald Trump, who has said that every single woman who did not report her rape the day it happened is a liar. Which, by the way, I know this sounds crazy. Is he going to lose, like, any of the, women who were raped and didn't go to the police?
No, they voted for him, and he was already saying that he was, like, a sexual assaulter. So I think they're fine with that.
Yeah, it's like a Stockholm thing, I guess.
It's just like, well, it happened to me, so fuck this bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they really have they're setting it up as though there's like the permission structure around it because he didn't successfully rape her and because it was so long ago that it's like it almost doesn't matter to them, to the Republican faces that like the people that are really like the senators, they're kind of getting around that to, oh well, it's on her, she should have reported it a long time ago, which is just fucking insane.
It sounds like they're basically saying, oh, he did this. The Republicans are acting like they're 100% sure this is true. Because, I mean, when you hear the story, it's like the odds of this being made up out of nowhere are pretty low. Like, it's pretty overwhelmingly likely this happened.
But she also passed a lie detector test.
Lie detectors mean nothing.
Yeah, you squeeze your butthole and apparently you can pass the lie detector test.
Oh, so you watch The Americans.
There's a reason they're not.
No, I heard it on This American Life. But no, that's apparently all you got to do is
there's a reason
squeeze your butthole real good.
Yeah, there's a reason we don't make people take lie detectors in criminal cases, just because people think that they're a lot more reliable than they are. But once again,
the willingness to take one does.
Yeah,
do
I'm
something.
very certain this woman is telling the truth, because literally, what woman 40 years later says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to become famous.
Right.
For getting and to get lots of death threats from like the craziest half of the country.
And also that this, her reporting of it started in July before he was even appointed as a judge.
That's true.
Or, I'm sorry, appointed or nominated.
Nominated. He was
running to the Supreme Court.
And we know that she started talking about this about 5 years ago.
Yeah, that would be a pretty long scam to play.
And people heard about it in high school. It was, a thing that people were talking about.
Also, typically, once you ask to talk to the FBI, that's a pretty good sign you're not lying.
Yeah.
Typically people aren't like, I came up with the best lie ever. Let me go tell an agent about it. it's a crime to lie to the FBI. It's not just. I mean, even if you think she would want to do this for like some political gain, even though she's just
An apolitical person.
like, I mean, yeah. assuming that as she's a professor in California. I mean, assuming she's on the left side of things, even if you wanted to throw that out there, she's probably not willing to commit a federal crime herself.
But by the standard of
Right.
what makes you biased, anyone who thinks global warming exists is a left-wing nutcase who is going to lie about that. I mean, they think that anyone who doesn't worship Donald Trump, which is almost everyone with, like, you know, some kind of profession and education, is somehow then suspect, and you can't believe anything they say. But I think they all think he did this. They're not acting like they would be investigating it if they thought he didn't do this.
I think the most damning part about it is that, what is his name, Mark Judge? He's the guy that was allegedly
Professional blackout alcoholic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's written 2 books about like him being drunk in this all boys school that he went to with Kavanaugh. One of the characters in the book's name is O. Kavanaugh because he was really trying to hide who he was talking about. And he
I didn't know that.
refuses-
Really?
I love putting my friends' real names and stuff,
And he refuses to testify. And
which
it's-
sounds guilty as fuck.
Yeah, it's just like, now that's a perjury trap. It's just like, well, either I admit that I partook in the attempted rape of this woman, or I perjure myself in front of Congress. So I'm just going to not talk at all. Like, it's just, I think that's completely insane.
By the way, how many Alex Jones fans out there are just thinking, okay, first of all, we're really supposed to believe that he just happened to have a friend whose last name was Judge. This is a setup. You know these people are thinking that.
Well, I just love the term perjury trap unto itself. That's like saying a drunk girl is a rape trap.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, hey,
It's like, she
you
was
don't,
drinking that tequila, rape trap.
yeah. Hey, if everybody keeps all their clothes on and you just let her pass out peacefully, it's pretty
Like,
easy
you know those
pickle to
bitches
get
are
out
jailbait.
of.
Have you ever been in the situation? Because I've been in the situation where, like, I'm seeing a girl, and we're at, like, a party together, and we need to leave, and, like, she's passed out drunk, and I'm always like, I feel like I need to tell everyone, we had already arranged that she was going to be coming home with me.
Oh, dude.
We are already together. I am not going to do anything.
Yeah, because like I'm sober. You know, I've been sober for 10 years, and there's been multiple times where I was out with a friend, or just trying to get her to a cab or something like that, and I'm bolt upright and walking with a girl that's pinballing all over the sidewalk, and every girl that we pass is just like, really, motherfucker? But every time,
Can I leave her on the sidewalk?
dude, every time there's one dude that's like, yeah. Like, we are not on the same team, motherfucker.
You'll have random guys be like, hey, man, what are you doing? I'm like, hey, better me than you. She doesn't know you. She already... We've had sober sex many times. I don't need to take advantage of the situation. I'm trying to get her away from all you people.
Yeah, it's not good. There's nothing that makes me fear for a stranger more than when I see a hammered girl on the train, like, passing out.
I know.
It's like, oh, dude.
Yeah, nobody
So bad.
cares when I take home as like a drunk dude, like or like if I'm out
Homeless
with like
guy, whatever. Yeah,
it's
do
just
bro.
like you do you, girl.
Like,
Like
they see you and they're just like, you get it, girl.
Get yours.
it's like, go get that homeless dick.
They see you.
Wash it first, Bilbo.
They just see you dragging that guy back to your apartment like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Hey, look, a lot of homeless guys have huge dicks, and I know that because they've shown them
Yeah,
to me.
we've seen all of them.
Yeah, they stay. When you're a homeless guy with a huge dick, you go for any opportunity to show it. I think
Well-
it's like they're trying to build a buzz.
Yeah, I kind of changed my opinion about homeless guys jerking off when, like, I hate.
Now you're against it.
Go on.
Oh yeah.
What was your opinion initially?
I mean, I was staunchly against it, but no, I was in a hotel room with like other people for like 5 days, and it was a impossible to jerk off situation. And like the backup is real. If you're a dude homeless on the streets, at some like not only are you actually crazy, then you have all that sperm crazy on top of that. You gotta let those demons out, buddy.
See,
Where are you gonna do it?
I feel like they're guys. Like when a girl has huge breasts, or like everyone knows. But when a guy has a huge dick, you're really only gonna know if he shows you. So, like, if Ron Jeremy had never done porn, he probably would have fucked, like, 3 women his whole life, and they would have looked a lot like Ron Jeremy.
Yeah.
So, like, these homeless guys must be just going around being like, God, how do I get people to know?
I don't know. I don't think they're converting that to puss necessarily.
Oh, I think they're walking around being like, hey.
You think the hope
See
is
this?
alive?
Oh, yeah. I think they're walking around being like, people are going to start saying, there is a huge dick guy on Varick, and if I stay here, someone's going to want a piece. And I also don't think they're looking specifically for girls all the time either.
Just get the whisper campaign going.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be a way that they have some sort of like build up a self-confidence. Like everyone needs some sort of self-esteem, and it's just like, I'm homeless, I'm living on a train, but I got a big dick. Like,
Yeah, I think he sees a horrified woman's face looking at his dick, and he thinks, no, she's going to tell 2 friends, and they're going to tell 2 friends. Pretty soon.
I feel like in terms of positive reinforcement, the reaction you get when you show somebody your dick unexpectedly, there's probably a better way to go about it. But I do think there's a correlation between being crazy and having a huge dick. I'm convinced that the crazier you are, the bigger your dick is.
Are you
probably
just saying that because you're so mentally sound, you need for that to be true?
Yeah, I have the tiniest dick. I have it together, man. Magnifying glass in a couple hours.
That was, what you're describing was once an aesthetic in ancient Rome. In ancient Rome, like, ever see those statues like David and like, but not David, but like, the Roman era statues.
I thought that was just Michelangelo
David-
making himself feel better.
Right, I mean, that was later. That was Renaissance.
Yeah.
But,
I
like,
think he
the
just had a
older-
thing for dudes with small dicks.
But the older Roman statues, they all have small dicks because in ancient Roman times, a small dick was a sign of being civilized. And the animals, the Germanics and the Gauls and the barbarians were these huge pricked monsters.
With their big dongs on them.
Yeah, it was like a real thing.
Yeah.
That's There's no way you know that fact without having one girl having said something super mean to you. And you're like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm going to go back like 150 years.
Or
100 or 2,000 years, but yeah.
But yeah,
I'm
no,
gonna go back.
actually,
I'm gonna find the first reference to small dicks being positive.
I actually learned this because I asked how I was an art major. I was an illustration major, so I took a lot of art history, and I asked, like, how come the statues of the Gauls have such bigger dicks than the gods? Wouldn't the gods have the bigger dicks? And they're like, no, actually.
Well, and the Gauls also went into battle naked because the fear boner was real. And a lot of times, like, back in like old-fashioned running at each other, charging with swords, like, it was just an added level of startling to have a guy with a boner running at you.
Speaking
It's
of
like,
startling,
he's going to hit me and rape me.
It really raises the stakes. For
civilized
sure. Stakes is high when the dicks is out.
well, these civilized Romans were, they were like the only people, as far as they were concerned, who were like real people, and everyone else was cavemen to them. So they would describe these, tribes as just basically monsters. And we know now that a lot of them, they were doing head binding. They had like giant pointy. They looked crazy.
Yeah.
They looked like real monsters a lot of the time.
I just don't understand who's praying to a tiny dick god, though. Because, like, you know what I mean?
People
Like,
who do not give a rat's ass what women think of sex. That's who.
I mean, that is
well,
that is the
guys
culture that.
too, though. Like,
mean,
there's
I
plenty
don't-
of homosexuals back then.
I don't see Buddha with a big hog on him, though, do you?
I mean, I feel like Buddha's asexual.
But homosexuality in the time you're thinking of was not intended to be enjoyed by anyone but the top. By
So
gay
no reach
or
arounds?
Yeah. Gay or straight sex, only the giver was thought of as the person that you should give a shit about. The person taking it was always the victim because they were just a horrible culture. So, like, I really think
I'm
that, like,
so hard right now.
Richie's got a boner.
Ugh. Anybody got a trapper keeper I can borrow? Or-
Rome sucked. Rome was a terrible, terrible place. They were considered like the first civilization, and they were so pro-cruelty.
I mean, from the culture that brought you dying during sex as a good thing, comes all of this other.
No, I mean, if you were a slave in ancient Rome, you could not give testimony on trial unless you were tortured first, because they believe that's the only way to know it's true.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, are you really going to sit there, though, and tell me that you wouldn't like to see some Christians fight a lion?
I mean, I want to see people fight in a cage. I'll be honest. I want to see that in any capacity. If I had to vote on it, I'd vote no, but if it's happening, I'm going.
Once again, it's Lions 10, Christians 0 here at the Coliseum.
Here's the question. then.
It's
How
really
many
going to have an
pe-
impact on the Freedom Caucus.
How many Christians makes it even?
For what? One lion?
One grown male lion. How many Christians makes it an even fight? How many people? Let's not be discriminatory.
Oh.
You just want to see Christians get eaten by lions.
Well, I mean, the Christians at the time.
How many Jews versus a lion,
were
you
some of
think?
the at the time, especially, Christians were like the only nice people on earth. At least in Rome, they were the people that had like real morals. basically.
Yeah.
That's why it caught on so well.
I mean, did they have weapons? They had some spears and shit.
Oh, that's a good question. I think
they
sometimes
had
they probably did have those blunted gladiator weapons.
Yeah, they had some Nerf shit.
Yeah, they had like a sword that you could like.
If you didn't have something real sharp, I
did
think,
not,
then
I think it's gotta be
it's just until the lion gets bored.
I think it's got to be like a pound for pound. So like how many pounds the lion is, I think like a pound of people.
Lions are only about 500 pounds.
And
Tigers
way
are
stronger.
900, but lions are only about 500.
Think of how strong a 40-pound dog is.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, are you saying how many people could take down a full-grown
Yeah,
lion?
I'm saying
Like
how many people
would be a full
fight?
fight? Yeah.
And
I thought you were
I
like,
was
how many
thinking,
people
like-
would it take for it to be a fair loss? Where it's like, all right, like we lost 100 people in one lion, that's a wash.
I mean,
Push.
eventually the lion is just like full, but they're still going to fight. So it's really until like the lion just decides it's tired of killing and just lets you.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I think.
But if it's your bare hands, I don't think there's anything you can do to a lion.
No.
You got punching a lion with your bare hands.
I have a buddy that inadvertently got into a fist fight with a baby baboon and said he's never been punched harder in his life.
Of course he has.
How do you inadvertently get into a fight with a baboon?
He was in Kenya and
Say no more.
well, no, he was like, it's a crazy story. His name's Sean Hughes. It's one of the best stories I've ever heard. He's the author that I told you would be great on here. That he was in Afghanistan. He was heading home, and then they got redirected. He was in the Navy, and they sent him to Kenya to set up special forces there. And while in the first week, Afghanistan went crazy with Tora Bora, and the top-ranking non-special teams guy was left to start the Kenyan Special Forces, and that happened to be him at like 23 or 24 years old, and had no special forces training whatsoever. But the biggest problem was that all their food was getting taken by baboons. And he set up like a real like Rube Goldberg kind of box with a stick, and finally caught this one baboon. And it was like with all of his guys watching, he picked up the box, and this baboon just dropped him. And he was like, I was in the shape of my life. I've been in fist fights that could have gone like a full 12 rounds. I got one time by a baby baboon.
You know why they're so much stronger than us?
Go ahead.
The reason they're so much stronger than us is because our muscles are physically soft. That's what allows the muscles in our hand and arms to make all the intricate movements that our fingers can make that allow us to build things and be so much more evolved, basically. Whereas all these chimps, they can't make intricate movements. If they were smart enough, they still couldn't really use a keyboard or a screwdriver intricately.
They can smoke though.
But that's why they're so much stronger, because they have much harder muscles. So here's the thing about that. It's also the reason we're able to masturbate
Chimps can masturbate
properly. Women can masturbate better than chimp women because they have much more, intricate finger use. Here's the thing about that: humans are having sex with apes for millions of years, because we know we split off from apes around 4 million years ago, but we only stopped having sex with them about 2 million years ago. We prove that by the existence of pubic lice, crabs, because there's both head lice and pubic lice, which means both evolved separately, but then on two different periods of history, because we kept fucking the monkeys. And the only reason we stopped fucking the monkeys is because we got too physically weak to do it. But the exchange of that was intricate fingers, better masturbation.
So we're still getting these nuts off.
So the trade-off was we had to stop fucking chimps so that we could just do it ourselves?
Well, it's my theory that the only thing that stopped us from fucking the chimps is when they got so much stronger than us. Because I'm pretty sure it was the humans fucking the chimps, not vice versa.
Wait, so does that also go to say that before that transition where we got too weak, dudes were just ripping their own dicks off trying to masturbate because they were so fucking strong?
I hope so.
And then they're scratching these awful pubic lice that are strong as shit, too.
At least I think we're just better at sex.
Yeah.
We're just probably better at, the whole act of it.
But isn't loving yourself the greatest love of all?
No, it's for losers.
No, loving chimpanzees is.
I mean, if you have sex with a boy monkey, does that make you gay?
It makes you brave. It makes you a man. That's what it makes you. Because that is not easy.
Yeah, do you think they made the distinction? Like, man, fuck that.
All right, honest question.
gonna have me some sex with a girl.
Full-grown chimp.
Monkey.
We both know full-grown chimps are like ridiculously strong. They
Yeah.
will rip your head right off with one shot.
Mm-hmm.
What would you need in your hands to feel like you had a fair fight with a chimp?
Oh, definitely a gun.
Is that fair fight though? If you have a gun, I feel like you're kind of at an advantage.
Fair?
You're in a room with a chimp.
I mean, at the very least, you need one strike capability.
I guess
So
a-
it's got to be like a samurai sword or some shit.
The only thing saving you with the samurai sword against a chimp is the fact that the chimp doesn't know that's what it is. Because if the chimp knew what it was, it would know how
It
to
would go
avoid
for
it.
that.
So I think the only reason you win with the samurai sword is because the chimp doesn't know that's what's coming at it.
You don't think a chimp knows that when you're swinging something at it, that's probably going to hurt?
I think it thinks it's like a stick. It doesn't understand that, like, if you say slowly press it toward them, they're not going to know that's going to cut them.
So you think that's the game, is to just try to go slow enough so that they're not threatened? And
I
they
just want to survive this.
cut through them like butter? Well, why do you want a fair fight?
Because I don't believe in, unfair fights with animals. I think that's the problem. All these hunters, they think they're men because they kill like a giraffe with a high-powered rifle.
So we should get like a humane monkey trap?
I'm just saying,
Like a giant glue trap.
I'm saying, like, if one of these hunters wants to, like,
Just
take a
put him
picture-
outside. He's already caught. Just put him outside.
I'm saying if you want to take a picture with like a giraffe and show everyone how tough you are, you should kill that giraffe with something that makes me actually impressed with you,
Okay.
like a baseball bat.
I
Yeah.
feel like anybody that kills a giraffe, I'm not going to be impressed. Aren't they like the most gentle creatures?
I've never seen somebody standing
Oh.
with a dead giraffe.
They will. Oh, I have. I've seen hunters with their stupid giraffes. They're enormous giraffes, and they think that they're such like heroes because they killed this giant animal and they gave some money to the city that they did it in to like pay for it.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen the Trump boys with like their various big game
Yeah.
animals.
You know, I went to college with Trump Jr.
No.
Really?
Mhm.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Did
he-
you know him or? You
Yeah,
just-
he was actually an all right dude at the time.
Yeah.
Did you know the story from getting smacked to the ground by his dad?
I don't think that's true.
It's not.
No.
Wait,
like,
what's the story?
the
It's
sto-
just rumor.
there's a story that came out when he was running that he showed up and the kid was late to the door or something like that, and like he opened the door and he slapped him and said, "Put a suit on."
Oh, okay.
But no, I mean, it was definitely weird as shit. Like, once a month there would be a helicopter would land on Franklin Field, and it was Dad coming to take him to dinner or whatever. But no, I mean, the only time I think I've ever seen somebody get roofied was him. That we were like pre-gaming, and then we were at a party for 20 minutes, and like the lights were out, and just somebody said like, "Yo, I think you got fucking roofied." Because I think he was the only person I ever knew that was like rich enough that a girl might try to roofie him just to try to get a baby up in her.
You sure he didn't just pick the wrong cup?
Yeah, I was saying,
Well-
I went much more that direction than that.
Yeah,
He was
exactly.
the victim in that situation.
Yeah,
He's like,
Someone
damn
gotta-
it, which one was my beer?
Someone got a switcheroo back.
possible. So yeah, I mean, he was all right
That's
then.
shocking. 'Cause he seems like one of the worst human beings I've ever seen.
Yeah, he kind of like tried to do tough stuff. Like he tried to learn how to row, and which
Is rowing tough?
It's not easy.
impossibly hard.
It's one of the most physically demanding things you can do. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not.
to actually
It
get good at
sucks.
it is crazy amount of work and discipline.
It's a lot harder than say like. I mean, not that lacrosse is easy, but a weaker man can be a lacrosse player than a rower.
Yeah,
Definitely.
you can't take a stroke off with rowing is the hard part.
Yeah,
But
it's not fun either. It's basically
yeah,
being on
well,
an exercise machine.
so yeah, I mean, like guys that I know were like in his wedding and shit, but he obviously went down the path towards evil as time went on.
well, we'll see how that ends up for him.
Who knew that path led to Dad? Like,
That blocked number.
Who do you think's going to get indicted first, Junior or Jared?
Same
Haven't heard
time.
as much about Jared, but I think this is going to happen faster than we think because whenever everyone keeps saying, "Well, nothing's happening," it's always like, "Could you imagine being on trial and then announcing, hey guys, I must be innocent because I haven't been found guilty yet," like before the jury is there.
well, he's kind of
Yeah.
taking a play out of like the Mafia's playbook from 25 years ago or 20 years ago.
Talking
with
the senior?
Yeah, with John Gotti, the Teflon Don, who would just come out and make these pronouncements like they got nothing on me, until that one time when they did. But no, I mean, I think the notion that nothing's happening is crazy to me.
It's-
30 plus indictments.
It's
it
just shows the desperation.
Closing on a half a dozen guilty pleas, including, Manafort, Cohen, both of whom are now cooperating. I mean, if I were Trump or his attorneys, I would be getting very uncomfortable.
So, how far off the mark is Cohen allowed to lead them away from the investigation?
Mueller's investigation specifically said he had the right to investigate all crimes that they uncover in the process of this.
Yeah.
He could do whatever he wants.
Which is, I do feel like that's kind of problematic, that it's like just a license to investigate every single thing about a person. But at the same time,
Don't be a career criminal.
At the same time, it's great right now
Yeah.
because, it's our side that's getting to enjoy this.
There's a reason they say don't lie to the FBI.
Yeah.
And that's what Trump thinks he can do. That's why John Dowd called him a fucking liar. John Dowd, his ex-lawyer in Woodward's book, said that if you try to talk to Mueller,
You can wind up
you're
in an
going to go to
orange
prison.
jumpsuit, yeah.
And he called him a fucking liar in an orange jumpsuit. And they tried to have him. I mean, even with your own lawyer, you can't keep your cool. With your own lawyer who's like trying to help you and he starts screaming, "You're against me, you're doing a witch hunt." It's like, that's not really him, Donald. That's the person on your side trying to help you.
Yeah.
I think that he's got some problems. I am skeptical that he gets indicted ever, Trump.
Yeah, I don't think he will.
I think that, the Nixon route is, I think, the most extreme route that you'll see, where he's an unindicted co-conspirator, and that's as far as it ever gets.
But Nixon would have been indicted if not for Gerald Ford pardoning him after he left office. Trump can't be indicted because he's in office. Instead of being indicted, he'll be impeached. As soon as the Democrats are in charge, he will be impeached, and then there will be a trial to decide if he should leave office.
Even at that, the numbers are still pretty tough to actually impeach
Convict,
somebody.
yeah.
right now.
But
Do you think that we're gonna
they're
take
tough
back the
either way.
Senate?
No.
Even if we took back the Senate by a simple majority, we wouldn't take back the margin needed to actually
And
impeach
there's
him.
no way he would ever have the class to actually bow out.
Of course not. I don't want him to.
There's been so many times, just during the campaign, there were so many times people were like, "Oh, that was it. That's it. He's done. He's
Well,
going away."
I feel
He'll
like
never
if-
have that class.
If they have some sort of I feel like if they have leverage over Ivanka and it's either you resign or Ivanka goes to prison, I think he might step down. But other than that,
He would let her burn in hell.
I don't think
Are
so.
you kidding me? He
I
would
really
let her
don't.
spend
He
the
would
rest
let
of her life in jail.
So I think he would let Eric and Don burn in jail. But there's something weird about him and Ivanka that I think that he would actually.
That is definitely true.
Yeah, I think
But
that
no, I
if
think
it
that-
has to do with Ivanka, that he would
think
do it.
he actually has that much of a soul that even for her, he would go to jail in her place. He's the different. No, what happened is
No, I
he
don't
did
think
not
he's
put
gonna
her-
go to jail. I think
loves
he
her
would
so
step
much-
down.
He loves her so much that he did not put her in a position to commit crimes the way he
Yeah.
forced Jared and Don Jr.
But
That's
she
how much he
already
loves her.
has.
I don't think he.
her own crimes,
nobody
though.
forced those two retards to commit crimes. They just jumped feet first.
Well, because they're
into-
trying to curry
obvious-
favor
into
with
replying
Jax.
to an email that said, "Hey, want to collude? I love it."
Yeah, that was the most obvious trap a foreign government had ever. Like I said earlier, it was like they had a 12-point plan of how to infiltrate the Trump administration, and then got to ignore the last 11 points because John Jr. just said, "Please, please, let us
Yeah.
implicate each other."
No, it's like they literally had a plan of how to do this by themselves. And why don't we just ask first?
Yeah.
And then they asked, no, you won't believe this, boss, but they're on board.
Well, it's like when it's like the Jackie Childs episode. Were we just talking about this? The Seinfeld
Seinfeld?
episode
Yeah.
when like you saw that their lawyer was going to give when he got burned by the coffee, and like he had like 5 things that he was going to offer him like millions of dollars, and it's like, all right, first of all, we want to start with we're going to give you free coffee for life. I'll take it. it's exactly what it was.
Before he found out.
Yeah.
You know, it makes me this whole situation. If I can back up a minute, I just because you brought up the Jackie Childs thing about the coffee, and that reminded me of something. Do you guys actually know the story of the McDonald's coffee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
About what really happened, though?
Burnt the clit off.
Yeah, thank you.
It's all fun and games.
Nearly killed
Somebody
that
gets
woman.
to- yeah.
That woman came very close to dying.
Death by clit
because
burn.
of how hot that coffee was. It melted about 30% of her lower body.
No, well, it wasn't in her entire lower, but it was like her groin. She had a huge number of huge portion of her like kind of groin, severe third-degree burns.
exposed
Had to
nerve,
have
right?
multiple skin graft surgeries.
She nearly died. Yeah,
and
she could have died from infection.
One of the
Yeah.
things that made it so egregious wasn't just that this all happened, but that this wasn't the first time.
Yeah, there was something
And
like
so
50
McDonald's
previous
was on
complaints.
notice of all of this, and instead of doing anything to prevent this terrible thing from happening, it just ignored it essentially. and then settled, and thanks to the beauty of non-disclosure agreements, essentially mounted a PR campaign against a silent opponent.
They found out that and that's what makes me. One of the things I look back at, like the 80s and 90s, that makes you so disgusted is just how easy it was to get everyone to just agree with a lie by simply having the money behind it. Because, she was not allowed to defend herself. While they went around calling this woman a liar. No one knew the fact that she was not the one driving the car. The car was not moving at the time.
Yeah.
This woman did nothing wrong.
But I mean, the story that we got was that it was hot coffee, and she sued because of that.
Right.
And got $20 million.
It wasn't even that they called her a liar. It was so much almost worse.
A liar about how much she was. They act like she was lying about being hurt.
Yeah. Well, no, they downplayed her injuries, but they also made it sound so ridiculous, and everybody just jumped on board with this corporation as opposed to a human being, which I think is kind of like, if you want to just carry that forward, we love corporations now.
It's disgusting.
Fuck yeah.
This trust people have of corporations compared to the government makes absolutely no sense. When did we become people who trust a company?
Yeah, I mean, even companies that have been around for a while, we just they constantly surprise us with how shitty they are. And people blow me away, and they're like, "Oh God, man, I don't want to regulate Facebook. I love Facebook." I'm like, what?
Dude, do you think they're going to take away your profile if you say something mean about them? And the reason I brought up the coffee thing, though, is actually I wanted to bring up because that brings me back to a very important person we should be talking about right now, Anita Hill.
Yeah.
Has anyone else recently rewatched her testimony because it's been on the news a lot lately?
There's actually a movie on HBO yesterday.
It's great.
I was watching
Kerry Russell, right?
Yeah.
Kerry Washington.
Washington.
Yeah. Watching that, this is a woman who was called a lying whore by everyone in the country at the time who was even slightly on the side of Clarence Thomas, wanted to be basically everyone who wanted a Republican appointment to the Supreme Court. Watching her testimony today, I literally cannot imagine anyone thinking she's lying. This was such a clearly horrified, proper, well-raised woman who you could see, she probably never in her life had a man speak to her the way Clarence Thomas did, the disgusting, gross ways that you could just see. Women like her don't even exist anymore, who are that, respectable, that if you say something like this to them, they get that mortified and embarrassed. It's almost quaint that she was such a good person.
Well, I think there are actually a lot of parallels right now. I mean, there's not a direct one-to-one, obviously, between was it Blaney Ford, the current Kavanaugh accuser?
Yeah. Dr. Ford, I've been calling her. I don't remember her first name.
Blaney's her name?
I think it's hyphenated. It's her last name. It's,
Blazy.
I thought they were calling her Ford. Yeah,
I know this. Yeah, it's Dr. Ford, but I thought she had a hyphenated last name. It seems to not be. Either way, Dr. Ford and Anita Hill have a lot in common. They both are well-educated women. They both have professional careers that are exceptional. They both have kind of this perfect life if they keep their mouth shut.
Yeah.
And they both come forward at this time when they say, look, you need to reevaluate this person. His personal life is not what it appears to be. And what's interesting, and one of the things that I had read, it might have been in a documentary that I can't remember the name of now, or in an article somewhere, was that the Washington Post pulled an article about Clarence Thomas that was going to run the day after he was confirmed, essentially corroborating how much of a kind of sexual creep this guy was, because he was already confirmed, and at that point, it wasn't a matter of public interest anymore because he's on the court.
Right.
And he got dropped.
Yeah, the story got killed. But apparently, he is. Not only should we believe her, but that probably was just the tip of a very gross iceberg.
There's more women that are coming forward about Clarence Thomas now, and then there's quietly this movement to try to start an impeachment process on Clarence Thomas, which I think is interesting because I feel like this is a Hail Mary if Kavanaugh doesn't get put in and they put a stop to Kavanaugh, or they want to actually try to throw in another Republican that's far more conservative than even Clarence Thomas. But
I'm not sure that's possible.
Speaking of it's probably not. But speaking of Kavanaugh, aren't we also getting stories of him grooming women for his office?
So the narrative that's come out recently has been that he hires all of his clerks, I think, from Yale Law School. And he hires almost
notorious whore factory.
He hires almost exclusively female clerks, and I think at least a percentage clerks of color who are probably also female. But But the narrative has been that before interviewing with Kavanaugh, everybody tells you dress in an outgoing manner. And outgoing essentially means
Show some skin, honey.
show some skin, throw it, like make him attracted to you because all of his clerks look like models.
Which
also-
isn't illegal.
No, it's not.
It's not.
It's not illegal for Woody Allen to marry his wife's daughter either.
Yeah.
It just looks bad.
It's just fucking weird. Yeah.
But it actually, so it's probably not illegal, but it's.
It might technically it might be if it becomes consistent enough, like that Seinfeld episode.
I think as long as you never put it on paper, it's probably
yeah,
illegal.
no. If you literally said B cups are better, that's probably against the rules. But
Yeah.
no one's dumb enough to say it outright.
I don't
Yeah.
even know if it is illegal because, like, with Abercrombie and Finch, for instance, like all
Fitch.
of their sales associates are called brand models, and the district managers and regional managers actually get a cash bonus for having the most attractive staff. And like that's been going on with them for years.
Yeah, but that's so. I think that comes down to the job title though of model, right? That's why they're called models.
I mean, technically, if they're walking around a clothing store and they're wearing the clothing of the store, it doesn't. That's like a stripper almost.
That
You
guy
have
was
a right
super
to say if
public
they're
about it. Like, I don't want ugly people to wear my clothes. That's
But
why
they
I don't.
also-
That's why he doesn't have they don't have plus sizes and stuff like that.
Right. And if you're like if you're a woman and you're a size 6, you have to work in the stockroom. Like they don't allow
Jesus.
like you have to be between a 0 and a 4 to be allowed to like work on the sales floor.
Now, here's a question. Tell me if this is. Am I being unfair? Is this offsides? To just say to look at Clarence Thomas and Judge Kavanaugh and say, are we going to ignore the idea that these men who seem entitled to women's bodies are the same men who feel that those women are not entitled to decide what to do with their bodies? Judge Kavanaugh has a very bad record on abortion. We all know the story about him basically skirting the law and trying to manipulate the law to stop a 17-year-old Mexican girl from getting an abortion simply because, even though we live in a country where people can get abortions, he was like, well, you're in our custody right now. You didn't break a law, but you're still in our custody, so since I have the ability to decide what you do, I'm just going to take away your right to an abortion.
Wow,
That's
I
what he
didn't know
tried.
that story.
That's what
Yeah.
he tried to. And what he did was he couldn't legally say that, so he just said, "Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to impose a waiting period on this that clearly makes it impossible for you to get one."
Because what he was trying to do is say that since she was a minor, that they would wait until they had a family sponsor her or she was like put into like the foster care system and then allow her legal guardians to decide whether or not she could have an abortion.
But then she would have to. They would have to go back to court. It
Right.
was so clearly designed, to
And the
just
clock
stop
is
her.
ticking.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's how all of the attacks on abortion are made. It's not nobody comes out and says like, "Oh, never abortion." They come out and they make it like this Byzantine Kafka-esque process for you to get one. I think that the real question with Kavanaugh is it's pretty clear that his views on women's rights in general are not going to be the stuff of liberal dreams. That's pretty obvious that this is not a guy who views women birth control as at all related to anything other than. I think that he essentially compared it to an abortion at one point, or called it.
I've heard that that birth control itself can be in jeopardy if we get a far right enough court.
Yeah. Of
course.
How is that?
So I mean, just look at Ireland 10 years ago. Like, really, we're backsliding towards like this very Christian value
Don't
set.
forget, Robert Bork, who was almost a Supreme Court justice. The only reason Robert Bork, who was one of the worst human beings to ever be appointed or attempt to be appointed to the Supreme Court, he was the only guy that Nixon could find to break the law for him and start firing people, as Attorney General.
Yeah.
Robert Bork was only not allowed in the Supreme Court because he smoked weed as in like college or something.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
High
Robert
school, yeah.
Bork, while they were doing these confirmation hearings, we were asking how we could get rid of birth control. He gave the model for it: community standards. Robert Bork argued that all behavior is determined by the community you're in, and if the community you're in says we don't like gay sex is illegal. If they say we don't like blowjobs are illegal. Like, he had an argument.
So you just
that
have
there's
like
no such thing as
nonstop
personal freedom.
referendums on all kinds of shit.
we did
There's
have-
no freedom outside of what your community decides freedom should be. is
We
what
did
Bork
have
believed.
that system for a while. Then there was that war in 1860s about that. Like, there was a real specific community standard at the heart of it, but that is essentially the same system. Is that you can remove whatever insular minorities' rights you want to remove because in your community they are an insular minority and you're the majority.
So it would come down to they would make birth control a states' right thing.
So essentially, the courts have traditionally been anti-democratic.
Right.
That their entire role has been to protect minorities under the Constitution in the most extreme cases. Whether they've done a good job or not on that one, I think is a topic of debate. But essentially, if they move towards being more democratic, all they have to do is exactly what Bork suggested, is just say, look, this is not a matter of constitutional right. This is a matter of just state police power. And at that point, the state can do whatever it wants. It just has to be. It just has to have a reason for doing it.
It will start with everyone wanting to have a vote on abortion. Some of them could be votes on the people, but others could be votes from the legislature, which is a lot scarier.
Well, all they need is a couple of stories, which really don't even need to be true, that seem to indicate that people are getting abortions too freely.
Well, yeah, I mean, my parents are super Christian, so, like evangelical, rolling in the aisles, speaking in tongues, shit at church, and but they're not political nuts, and but like whenever abortion comes up, it's always like, yeah, well, they're just these women that are getting they use abortion as birth control, and they're just once a year they get an abortion. Like, I don't think that's what abortion is.
So you were raised by very Christian people, but not the kind of Christian people who align themselves heavily with the Republican Party. Is that what you're saying?
I put it this way, that you could spend the weekend at their house and not know they're Christian until you go into their bedroom and there's like a 3-foot CrossFit Jesus hanging over the bed.
Right. So I was just meaning, so that's why they're okay with you opening for Cat Williams.
My mom, my dad didn't vote, and my mom did vote for Trump. Jesus. And it took a pretty long time to like reconcile it, because I wanted to punish her for all the shit he was doing. I'm 100% confident that she won't do it again, but
because you beat her,
because he'll be in jail.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, it's. I think if it was anybody other than Hillary, she probably wouldn't have voted for him.
Hillary did do a lot of horrible things in a lot of people's heads.
So, like, how
Hillary was a
does
horrible
she,
person, according to the blogs that I read.
being a Christian, reconcile voting for him? Like, he's been divorced like 3 times, grabbing women by the pussy.
I can answer
how
that.
does she? Well, I was asking Richard. Like, how does she? Like, have you guys talked about that?
That was locker room talk. B, he's Christian now.
What
forgiveness?
That's just.
Don't you know what forgiveness is?
Yeah, he's Christian now. You didn't know that? He's Christian now.
I think it comes down to all the pussy grabbing in the world is nothing compared to the millions of babies we're going to save. I think that's what it comes down to with all these evangelicals.
Well, it makes sense, though, right? If you think abortion is murder and you really believe that in your core, that is always going to be the greater good. You can justify almost anything.
It's a driving force, yeah.
It's why Sarah Sanders is able to lie every day. She's talking to a bunch of abortionists in her head.
Well, I mean, I think, she can lie every day probably because if she told the truth, she'd get fired immediately. But if she came out with could you imagine that press briefing?
She just likes to check.
Could you imagine if we dosed her with sodium amytal?
Just like one day where she came out and gave an honest press conference, that would be the most amazing day in the world. She'd be like, no, actually this administration is in chaos. He has no idea what he's doing. He's mentally unfit for office, and this is terrifying.
I just look forward to her last press conference, the one where
nobody knows that it's the last press conference.
I feel like the last one is going to be the one where like everything just happened and everyone knows it's already over, and you're just going to see her just withering away. This is what I'm hoping for personally. I want to see every single person in the press corps have the smuggest look they've ever had on their face as they ask these questions that they just know make her want to kill herself. Because I feel like that's where we're leading. She's hanging in there, and I want to see so badly to just see like just to see like any one of these people. Like, I want not David Corn because he's not in the press, but just like someone like David Corn, because I just think of him as the smarmiest looking person I can think of. Just being like, so Sarah, and just going through a list of, when you said this 3 months ago, that was a lie, right? Like when she missed a one thing that then cascades into all the previous lies.
Yeah, I mean, one of just the weirdest things that with all of these lies that, all 5,000 of these lies, it always just comes down to like, well, it's not illegal to lie to the press. It's not illegal.
Mm-hmm. That was determined a few years ago by the Supreme Court over a Fox News case, where Fox News producers went all the way to the Supreme Court to argue that because they were fired for refusing to lie, And the Supreme Court case ended up saying, well, they can do that.
Well, no, that's lying as the press.
Right.
But
it's
this
essentially-
is
yeah, I know,
this
but
is
it's essentially
instead
the same.
the
Lying
president
to the
saying,
press.
"Well, yeah, I lied, but that's not a crime because I'm
You're
allowed
still lying
to
to
lie."
the general public. I
Yeah,
think is
not a
that-
crime.
Yeah.
Not a
No.
crime.
Well, and that's why, that guy Judge is willing to lie, is willing to tell the Washington Post he didn't rape anyone.
Well,
Yeah, well, coming
not
back to
back to
coming back to the judge thing, what is the process other than self-termination to remove a Supreme Court judge?
I think they can be impeached.
I believe it's cancer.
So wait, do you mean?
Yeah.
So are you talking about Kavanaugh? Or are you talking about
Anybody like
Clarence
it's-
Thomas.
The,
So,
the
all right.
thing that just remains so insane to me is that any job could have a lifetime appointment, much less the most important job in the United States.
All right, so kind of first, the way you get a sitting judge gets impeached. That's the only real way to remove him from office. There's no real other way. I think that if it was truly obvious that a judge wasn't retiring, but also was completely incapable of doing their job, maybe we'd find that impeachment wouldn't be political, and it would just be this person actually needs to be removed.
Because like dementia is real.
Yeah, and
I
I don't know of any cases of that happening, and I think below the Supreme Court, typically, we wouldn't even I would be surprised if it made much news if a judge on the Third Circuit was removed. I think that it would only make news because impeachment is just such a startling word.
I can
Yeah.
promise you that if Trump won a second term, he would be trying to do that to Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
But I think but Kavanaugh can just get pulled tomorrow. There's no reason this is the easiest thing in the world. All the White House has to do is say we're removing Kavanaugh as our nominee.
Right.
We're going to plug
But
in.
it's never going to happen.
Well, it's
Hold on, though. Remember Harriet Myers?
No.
Harriet Myers was George W. Bush's cleaning lady, who he decided to appoint to the Supreme Court. He was this personal lawyer who had no experience with the big boys in law, and he just wanted to make her a Supreme Court justice because he was comfortable with her. And she was laughed out. She never even got the hearing. They just laughed her off, and he withdrew her. Here's the important thing: she had higher approval ratings than Judge Kavanaugh.
Right.
Judge Kavanaugh is underwater. He has more unfavorable
They
than
don't give
favorable.
up.
Harriet Myers never had that.
Right, but there was also a different time that
Yeah.
it wasn't obviously just a money grab and just getting as much shit as you can on the way out the door. Like this entire assembly has been.
The only reason why, Trump is even putting him up is because Kavanaugh believes that a sitting president
Is
can't
God.
be
Can't be
indicted.
impeached, yeah.
and
Or can't be
that
indicted, right.
They can't be indicted
Unless
So-
his name is Bill Clinton.
But
Right.
yeah. But that's the only he wasn't even on the original list. They went back and added him later, and it's really the only reason why he's pushing so hard for Kavanaugh right now is because he's been so documented as saying that he doesn't believe that a sitting president can be indicted or can commit a crime, and so this is his Hail Mary. He doesn't give. I don't think that Trump actually gives a shit about his position on abortion. That's just us kind of getting distracted by the real reason why they're pushing him forward. It's we're just well, Kavanaugh's going to take our abortions away, not Kavanaugh is going to let him walk.
And he's
Trump
also a
made
corporate
him
champion.
Trump wants him
Yeah.
there because of the indicting thing. The Republicans at home want him there for the abortions.
I think
Well, I
they
think-
also want him for the indicting thing because they aren't
They think
ready.
Trump's innocent. They don't think it's going to make
Come
the
for the
Supreme Court.
indictments, stay for the abortions.
Yes.
That's the slogan.
that literally. If I were Planned Parenthood exec, I would literally make that our slogan.
That's your bumper sticker, folks.
Why donate to Planned Parenthood? Because you came for the you came for the
Indictments.
indictments, and you stayed for the abortion.
Stayed for the abobo.
I'm
I-
only coming for the impeachment.
I do think just taking a little bit of a longer term lens on this, assuming that Kavanaugh gets onto the court, which honestly still seems likely. I don't think that anything really matters anymore in terms of character.
No.
That ship has sailed. We all expect politics to be so gross and dirty these days. But the concern is that the Supreme Court, it has no real power. Its power comes from its legitimacy, because if you defy the Supreme Court, the public has always held the Supreme Court up above the presidency. So the approval
Right.
ratings for the court have always exceeded the approval ratings for any individual president. If you politicize it too much, you can drag that right back down to the trenches with the rest of with the legislature and the president. And at that point, it becomes very difficult for the court to do anything beyond anything that's anti-democratic, anything that's in its
Yeah,
real
Yeah, but
role.
the
like-
court's been unpopular since I mean, more recently the court's been very unpopular, especially with like the super PACs and
But
like,
even with
Even then,
all
it's
of
always
that,
still more popular than Congress or the
it's-
president.
I think
Yeah.
it's even still above 50%, which in Washington politics is like
Congress is like 8.
phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah.
But even with
But I think John Roberts becomes kind of the great hope at that point, because this is his court. He owns this for the history books in the same way that Chief Justice Taney owns the Dred Scott decision and that whole era of Supreme Court precedent that really was the last kind of gasp of slavery in this country. Fun fact: there's still I think it's either a painting or sculpture of Taney at Harvard Law School.
of course,
But I think that Roberts knows that if he doesn't then shift to the center a little bit, his court will forever be the court that really tanked when it counted. And so, and he's done it a couple times where he's shifted his vote just enough. We saw it with Obamacare. We've seen it a couple times where he knows his legitimacy is on the line, and so he's never going to be Kennedy. But I think we could see him actually be the deciding vote in abortion cases.
but like, what kind of populist reaction could there be to a runaway court? Like, if there's any such thing as, like if an impeachment was actually to happen, it's not like the people can have an uprising and successfully change the court's opinions, though, can they?
So what do you mean by runaway court?
So, a court that's obviously 6-3 slam dunk for every conservative case, and if they, if they outlaw abortion and turn over the the issue of birth control as a states' rights thing,
I think that
can they actually? Is there a mechanism to get them to reconsider and overturn their own rulings?
yes,
Or are we just
later,
stuck with
just
it?
later cases. In the
Yeah,
same
so
way
you're
that
basically
Roe v.
stuck with it for X amount of years until people age out.
And
right?
I think we're kind of seeing that
crazy.
already. That we're seeing the exact opposite of the antebellum period right now, where it's the northern and liberal states that are starting to guard their states' rights and their prerogatives and saying, no, like, we're going to start providing tuition assistance on a more aggressive basis, better health care, access to abortion is going to be guaranteed here. We're not going to check your immigration status before we have these welfare programs. We're going to become sanctuary cities. And so all of that is in direct response to a shift to the right of the federal government.
And
Yeah.
that's why state government is becoming so much more important right now, is because like right now it's really our only line of defense against the federal government. And like why like your governor matters right now, and like why your state senate matters right now, is because they really are the only ones that are protecting us from this like Trump madness.
Well, and it's starting to finally be realized by the left that we've been playing the wrong game all along. The Republicans 10 years ago figured out that if they flipped state houses, they were
playing small ball.
They could redistrict, and redistricting has gotten them everything they've ever asked for and more.
Now every midterms they get less votes and get more seats.
Well, I think the last stat I saw was that in order for Democrats to take back any given seat on a national average, which isn't a really effective metric, but it's something like you need 105 votes to Republicans' 95 votes for you to have an exact parity. So
Right.
they have out of the gate an extra, what is that, 5% since it's out of 200?
Right.
And that's a huge thumb on the scale when you figure that only like 20% of the public votes in any given midterm election.
Right.
And add to that they don't care about democracy, and you've got a real problem.
No, it's definitely a problem. But we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be right back, you guys. This is Blame Storming.